Hi everyone, I'm Miss Karen at Adams Memorial Library. Thank you so much for joining us for April's Inquire Within program. So this month, for the April program, we are all about exploring the outdoors. Mr. Alex and I think it's warmer outside. It's time to get outside and see what you can see. But this month we're specifically talking about insects and spiders. Do you know the difference between insects and spiders? I did not, but now I do, because Eleanor of Eleanor Knows Why knows the difference between insects and spiders. And if you pick up one of our kits this month, you will learn too. In the kit, there's a lot of different activities, including one from Eleanor Knows Why, and the Wildcrats, and Hero Elementary, and a butterfly craft that you can do too. So if you are ready, please keep watching. Show you what's in the kit, and then you can pick the kit up at the children's room, in the children's room, or you can give us a call at the library and pick it up through curbside service. So, you ready? Let's learn about insects and spiders. Our first activity is from the Wildcrats. So Martin and Chris are going to be talking about soil in this activity, and you're going to get to make your own soil that you can actually eat. So there's a recipe for edible soil here, and it's going to look like this. There will be subsoil and topsoil and humus, and if you want, there can even be a little caterpillar on the top, just like that. In your kit, we're not allowed to give you food if it's not wrapped, so there will be a packet of M&Ms in case you would like to make a caterpillar on top too, and the clear cup so you can see the different levels of your soil. The other things you will need if you want to do it like this: some chocolate pudding. That's the bottom layer, the subsoil. Some graham crackers and some Oreos, which are the topsoil and the layer of humus. And if you want to make it like this, to make some grass on top, then you'll need some coconut that should dye green. Whoops, I almost lost my crumbs of topsoil here. You're going to put the Oreos and the graham crackers, if you're using them, inside a bag, and then you get to crush them with a rolling pin. It's actually very fun. Just make sure your bag is closed because you don't want the crumbs to be flying everywhere. Then you start making layers. First is the subsoil. That was the pudding. And then the graham crackers are the topsoil. On top of that, the layer of humus, which is where plants and things from other years, the old leaves and things will be. And some grass on top will be on top of that. And then you make a little caterpillar if you would like, just to grow on top. And the caterpillar will be our insect for this project. I use the M&Ms, and I also used teeny tiny little, the Twizzlers, the peel and pull. Did a little bit of that to make the caterpillar's antennae. So after you do this, study the soil and get a spoon, and you'll get to eat it. Enjoy. You remember the caterpillar from the edible dirt? Well, if you didn't eat the caterpillar, it will turn into a beautiful butterfly, like these ones. So this is a butterfly craft. To do this, we will give you in your kit 2 different sizes of coffee filters and pipe cleaner. And you will also need markers and some water and something to apply the water with to make it into a beautiful butterfly. So here's how you do this one. You'll take 2 of the coffee filters and make sure you get 2 the same size. Then you'll flatten them out, and then you're going to color them with markers. And this part is very important. You have to make sure that you protect the work surface that you have. Protect your table or wherever, your floor, wherever you're doing this. I worked on top of a plastic bag. Put my coffee filters down on that before I applied any water and the markers, because the same thing that makes all these colors blend really well and make the colors go through the coffee filters will also go onto your table. So that's why you put down some newspaper or plastic first, and then flatten these out, as I said, and you'll color them with markers. The idea is to get them to blend at the end. So what you're going to do is color different, just any design you want on the coffee filter, and leave a little bit of white space in between, but not too much. You want it to blend together if you don't leave any white space, it might just make one great big dark color. So you want to leave a little bit of white space. So here how you can see some blue and some green and some orange and purple, all different. On this one, I may have left a little bit too much white space. See how it didn't blend the whole way? So for this one, if I was going to do these colors again, I probably would add a little bit more color to it. But after you've applied your color and have it how you like it, then you add some water. You're going to have your two filters together because you only have to color on the top one. The color will leak through to the bottom one. So you only have to color once and have it flat on your protected surface, and then you add the water. You can use a little measuring spoon and pour some water on. If you have some kind of pipette, you can drip the water on, or you can get a bowl with a little paintbrush and just paint a layer of water on. You don't want to add too much because you don't want any puddles, because that will make it more likely that it's going to turn into one great big blob of color, and also it'll take a long time to dry. When I did mine, I let it dry overnight, and the next day it was ready. So after your coffee filters are dry, then you can separate them, and you're going to accordion fold them. And what that means is you're going to go back and forth folds, about a ½ inch wide or so. You just want it to have some pleats. So you go one way, and then I turned it over and went the other way. And you go back and forth, back and forth. When I did, I folded it this way, and then I turned it over and folded it the other way. So at the end, you get these pleats. You do each one separately, and then you have 2 pleated coffee filters. And then you're going to put them together and get the pipe cleaner. You take the pipe cleaner, put it in the middle of the 2 folded coffee filters and twist it around like that. So it'll hold it together, and it will also be the butterfly's body like this. I curled the ends around a pencil so it would look like the 2 antennae, and then I sort of just fiddle them around so it would look like, was the antenna and the butterfly. Once you've got that all in place, you have these curled and curved, then you just gently separate the wings like this. Spread them out a little bit, and soon you too will have a beautiful butterfly.
Hi friends! For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mr. Alex, and I'm here for the rest of our insect and spider activities. Now, for this activity, we're going to be testing the strength of spider webs by doing a science experiment. And as everybody knows, I love doing science experiments. So we're going to grab just a couple of things and get started. Inside your kit, there should be 2 paper plates, and we're going to need those, plus a hole punch, or another way to make holes in our plate. And then we're going to get string out of our kit, as well as some uncooked spaghetti from home. It's important that it's uncooked because we need to be able to make a spider web out of it. So what we're going to do to make each of our spider webs is that we're going to take our paper plate and our hole punch, and we're going to make holes around the rim of the paper plate and use a pair of scissors to cut the inside out. Then we're going to take our string or yarn, and we're going to feed it through each of the holes in a random pattern to make our very own spider web. And just like a real spider web, we want to be able to hold or catch things in this. So we don't want any of the holes to be too big in our spider web. Otherwise, whatever we put in it might pass right through. So once we have our spider web made of yarn complete, then we are going to create another spider web using our uncooked spaghetti that looks like this. And once again, we're just going to take our hole punch some holes in the outside of our plate, cut a hole in the center, and then feed the spaghetti through each of the holes to make a pattern. And again, we don't want any of the holes to be too big because otherwise what we're testing with will be going right through our plates. Once we have both of our spider webs ready to test, then we can find some rocks or other objects and place them on the webs to see which one will hold more. So now it's time to test our spider webs, and I'm going to start with my spider web made out of spaghetti. I have a couple of rocks of different sizes that I found outside, and I'm going to return outside when I'm done with them. And we're going to take these and we're going to place them on our web to see just how strong it is. Now, anytime we do science, before we do the fun testing part, we need to form a hypothesis or a guess of what's about to happen. So in this case, I guess that actually the yarn web will be stronger. And the reason I think that is that because even though yarn is very soft, yarn also bends. And as we can see, our spaghetti here, it'll bend a little bit, but not a whole lot. It's very brittle and will break easily. So I think that this web, because of that, will not hold as much as our yarn web. So it's time to figure out if I'm right. And I'm going to do this little by little. So we're going to start with some smaller rocks and place them on. And these seem to be holding pretty well. You know, I can place a few rocks on our web in different places, and the spaghetti is actually holding it up okay. The one thing that I can't do, and as I mentioned in the instructions, is some of the holes are a little bit big for our smaller rocks, and so we don't want them to pass right through. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 smaller rocks on here, and our web is still holding just fine. Now, let's see if we can fit some of our medium-sized rocks on here. So I have 3 medium-sized rocks. We're going to put 1, we're going to put 2, and we're going to put 3. And that actually did hold pretty well. So finally, I have one of the bigger rocks that I could find. And so let's place that on our spider web. And that fell right through. So now that we know what our spaghetti web could hold, let's clean this up and get our web that's made out of yarn. Alrighty, so now we have our spider web made out of yarn with our same rocks, and we're going to try again. So I'm going to start by placing some of the smaller rocks on it, just like this. And this I have to be extra careful with because it looks like our rocks might fall through some of the holes, just like that. But so far, if I place my smaller rocks, the web seems to be holding up pretty well, as long as they don't fall through the hole. But suddenly, my web fell. So let's see what happens when I try the medium rocks. It doesn't hold that either. Now, this means that my hypothesis or my guess wasn't correct. I really thought that this spider web made out of yarn here was going to hold more because it would do exactly what we see where it is flexible while holding the rocks. But even though it's flexible, something else is happening. It's pulling at the side of the plate here and pulling it in through the gap in my buckets here. And that's something that didn't happen with our spaghetti web. So there are other ways that I could test this. Maybe I could reinforce the rim of the paper plate on both of our webs so that that wasn't a factor and we're only testing the yarn or the spaghetti. But we can change it up and try again. That's the beauty of doing science experiments. Sometimes we're not right with our hypothesis and we have to learn or try more to figure out what the solution is. So let's see what your experiment shows us, and I would love to hear all about your spider webs. Well, friends, we've done some science, but now it's time for one of my other favorite activities, playing board games. So for our next project, we're going to go into our kit and we're going to get this packet here that talks about the Catch You Later Pollinator board game. And I'll show you how to make it and how to play. So friends, if you go into your packet and assemble your Catch You Later Pollinator game, your board should look a little something like this. Now, it might be slightly different because there is a version included as well that is colored in, so you can choose to build that version or the version I have here. But regardless of what you do, they'll both play the same way. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pick a pollinator. And pollinators are animals that take the pollen from flowers and transport it to a different flower. And that really helps the flowers and our environment. So there are a couple different pollinators to pick from. We have bees, we have butterflies, and some that aren't insects like bats. But we're going to go ahead and pick a pollinator. So for instance, if I were maybe the butterfly, then what I could do is on my turn, I would roll our die. I got a 2, and I can move my butterfly 2 spaces. Now, the goal of this game is to take my butterfly from the blue starting point, which matches my color, to a flower of a different color than I am. So that'd be the orange, the pink, or the purple. I can move 2 spaces, so I think I'll move 1, 2, right next to this orange flower here. Once I'm next to a flower that's a different color than my own, I can flip over my pollinator and take that flower's piece of pollen. Then, just like a real life pollinator, it's time to move the pollen back to my own flowers. So when my turn comes around again, I would roll, and this time I got a 1. So I'm going to move one space diagonally, because we can move in any direction, left, right, up, down, or diagonally, back to my own flower. And once I'm back to my own flower, I can take my piece of pollen out, place it on that flower, and that flower has been successfully pollinated. Now it's time for me to try to pollinate my other 2 flowers before everybody else pollinates their flowers. So, a couple things to remember while you're playing this game. The first thing is that in order to win, each of your 3 flowers that match your color of your pollinator have to be pollinated with pollen from a different color flower. So, in this case, I have orange pollen on a blue flower, and that counts. Now, as you'll notice, this blue flower actually has 2 pieces of pollen on it. It has mine and the one that I brought back to it. And that's okay. Flowers can have more than 1 piece of pollen on them. But for the purposes of this game, each pollinator can only carry 1 piece of pollen. So I can't go around flower to flower and pick them all up and then transport them back. I have to go back and forth each and every time. Finally, some of my pollinator friends might get in my way as I'm transporting my pollen. So for instance, if I roll a 1 and I'm on this square here and I want to be where my bumblebee friend is, I can't do that. I can't end on a space where another pollinator is. Now, if I've rolled a 2, for instance, I can move through where my bee friend is and go 1, 2, as long as I don't end where another pollinator is. There are a few more rules and a few other ways to play the game, but those will all be in your packet, and I hope you have just as much fun playing Catch You Later Pollinator as I did. Well, friends, thanks to our partners at WQED Education and Clearview Federal Credit Union, we have had a ton of insect and spider fun in the great outdoors. Now, if this wasn't enough insect and spider action for you, then you can go back into your packet for a couple of activities to do at home. The first one is this Eleanor Wonders Why packet, and in this packet, not only will you learn how to identify an insect, but you'll have this handy-dandy field guide where you can document all of the insects that you find. Then we also have a whole bunch of coloring sheets with some of our PBS friends, like Zoe here, also exploring insects and spiders. But most importantly, we'd love to see what you've done at home. So be sure to send those pictures on over to us at kids@adamslope.org. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube for updates not only about our Inquire Within programs, but everything else that we do here at the library. And as always, happy crafting, everybody!